A Crab and Goat Race Story by Timothy Christopher Timal. I think Auntie Jean is mean to kill all those crabs. There was deep concern on Tegan's face. A loving smile washed over Francis's face as he tucked his 10-year-old granddaughter into bed that night. I just don't understand why we need to kill the crabs. It seems so cruel. Why do we need to kill the crabs anyway, Gramps? Tegan was very concerned, and Francis sensed that true to her Scorpio nature, Tegan wasn't going to let it go. So after looking around to make sure no one was within earshot, he placed a finger to his lips. Shh! I'm going to tell you a secret. Tegan's eyes saucered, and she held her breath in anticipation. Whoa! There was much theatrics to how her grandfather said the one word, and Tegan sat up in bed knowing that there was much more to come. What war? Tegan loved her grandfather's stories, but somehow this one seemed different to her. She did not know how right she was going to be. Crab War. As Francis said it, Tegan's wild imagination immediately painted a picture of crabs in a row, marching like soldiers to battle, each with long, upright sticks in their hands. Yes. Francis said the yes as if he was actually seeing the picture Tegan painted in her head. Good and bad crabs have been in a struggle since time immemorial. They had always been evenly matched and all was well, until Tegan was hanging on every word that came from her grandfather's lips, and his hesitation made her shriek. Until what, Gramps? Francis held his head in deep consternation. Until we came along with our pollution. Fridges, washing machines, stoves, all manner of rubbish we dump in our rivers. And don't ask about our beaches, filled with plastic bottles, tires, nets, and fishing lines. Tegan could sense the deep pain in her grandfather's voice. The good crabs were hardest hit, and their numbers dwindled, causing an imbalance. Once an imbalance occurs, the whole ecosystem is threatened, and we risk losing our mangroves, coral reefs, and even our fish stocks. Tegan nodded her head, understanding that her grandfather was teaching her the lesson of conservation and protection of the environment. So when Auntie Jean cooks crabs, she is actually doing her part to win the war. A big mischievous smile forms on Francis's face as he kisses Tegan on the forehead. That night she slept like a baby, dreaming she was grown up and protecting nature. She awoke the next morning all smiles, and as she had done many times before, she rushed to her backyard to play with her pet goat DJ. He was the runt of his litter, and even though all the kids teased her about how small and useless he seemed, she loved him all the same. Choosing him seemed strange to the adults as well, since Tegan always dreamed about entering the island's annual goat races held around Easter time each year, and everyone knew it was the big strong goats that were best at racing. However, Francis did not agree. In fact, he encouraged his granddaughter to select DJ, saying, "Sometimes good things come in small packages." As soon as she remembered his words, she ran towards his room, but Auntie Jean stopped her before she could reach her goal. Tegan, Grandpa passed during the night. As Tegan ran and ran far away from home with tears streaming down her face, her aunt's words kept echoing in her head. Panting for breath and finally exhausted, Tegan balled up on a log all alone at the edge of the shoreline of the secluded beach. Tegan. Tegan immediately spun around, searching the empty shore for who called her, but all she saw was powder-white sand, a few scattered shells, and one seven-legged blue crab making its way sideways along the shore. She relaxed, knowing that it was probably her imagination, but when she heard her name called again, she knew it wasn't her mind playing tricks on her. "Don't be alarmed. My name is King Seven." Tegan gasped aloud as she realized it was the seven-legged blue crab that was talking to her. King Seven explained that he was king of the good crabs, and that he had gotten the name Seven after losing one of his 8 legs in a battle with the bad crabs when he was just a prince. He also told Tegan how he and Frances were lifelong friends, and that her grandfather had spoken about her many times to him. Me? Tegan, not fully recovered from the initial shock of seeing a talking crab, was even more surprised that of all the people and things to talk about, Frances had chosen to speak about her. "Yes, you. In fact, we spoke just last night. He came out here to talk to me about the new journey he was about to embark on later that night, and he told me to share with you what he wanted you to do in his honor." Tegan's eyes saucered even wider in disbelief. "You knew my grandfather?" King Seven let out a booming laugh, contradicting his diminutive size. "Ha ha 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 ha! Your grandfather was a lover of nature and a friend to all the good creatures on the island." Tegan smiled at his words, proud of her grandfather. "What did he want you to tell me?" Tegan quickly went from shock to negotiation. "He wants you and DJ to win the goat race next weekend in Buku." Tegan looked confused. "And I have the magic formula to ensure your win." Tegan's confusion gave way to a look of wonderment. "Tomorrow evening, just before the sun sets, you have to meet with General Pigeon at Pigeon Point Beach, but before you do, we will have some fun exploring the surrounding beaches and sights." That night Tegan did all her chores so that next day, bright and early, she took the bus along with DJ and King Seven and landed in Crown Point. Their first port of call was Fort Milford, which overlooked the island's most popular beach, Store Bay. King Seven explained that it was one of many forts that dotted the island, which had served to protect the citizens from attack many years earlier. After swimming in Store Bay's crystal clear waters, they moved on to Swallows Beach, a very shallow, waveless beach perfect for younger ones. After that, they took a glass-bottomed boat to Nylon Pool and Buku Reef, where they saw the many wondrous creatures that make the reef their home. The rest of the day was spent frolicking in the waters of Pigeon Point, and right on schedule they met General Pigeon as the sun was just about to set. General Pigeon was very helpful and gave Tegan a magic feather with a fisherman's hook piercing it, just before setting them on another task of going to see a turtle at Turtle Beach for the very next day. That night both Tegan and DJ slept soundly, fully exhausted by the day's activities. So hectic was it that the next day Tegan complained of feeling soreness in her thighs, and DJ was not as frisky as he usually was. But King Seven knew that once the two found out about the many fascinating stops on their adventure to Turtle Beach, the pair would be back to their normal selves. From Castara to Moriah to Mason Hall, then to the world-famous water wheel at Arnos Vale, onward to Plymouth and then Black Rock, the trio walked, hiked, swam, and thoroughly enjoyed a day out and about seeing the many sights of Tobago. Under the pin-cushioned night sky in the dim light of their little fire, the trio sat on the beach awaiting. Then out of the sea she came, Ma Turtle, the queen of the leatherback turtles, which nested on beaches such as Turtle Beach, Corlan, and Black Rock. Dermocheilus coriacea, the largest of all sea turtles. King Seven looked at Tegan with a sense of pride as she uttered the very informed words. Ma Turtle lumbered her teardrop-shaped massive frame towards them and began to dig a hole in the sand with her foreflippers, signaling the beginning of the nesting season for her species, which started around the beginning of March. King Seven, who put out the fire as soon as he saw Ma Turtle emerging out of the water, also cautioned Tegan and DJ to be very quiet, lest they disturb Ma Turtle while she was digging her hole. Only after she had dug the hole and was depositing her many eggs into it did Ma Turtle summon them over with a wave of her flipper. Ma Turtle was also very helpful, and after giving Tegan a magic piece of clear plastic bag, she told her about the next leg of the journey, which was for them to go to the main ridge reserve in the center of the island that proudly boasted of being the oldest protected forest in the Western world. It was designated as a protected Crown Reserve on 17th April 1776. Not in the least bit sore the following morning, Tegan got up before dawn, and along with DJ and King Seven, the trio set out for their hardest day yet. However, it wasn't all work, as King Seven took them on another fun-filled tour of that part of the island. Starting off at Fort King George, overlooking Scarborough, the island's capital, the trio's last stop was at Argyle Waterfall, the island's highest waterfall, where they took a refreshing swim in its mineral-rich waters. King Seven was quite the tour guide earlier in the day, showing them forts, beaches, and other places of interest on their way past Goodwood, Pembroke, Glamorgan, Bell Garden, and finally to Roxborough, where the waterfall is. Fully refreshed, the three then set off on the long trek to the Tobago Forest Reserve. At the reserve, Tegan was fascinated by the many mammals, butterflies, frogs, snakes, and other animal and plant life, but she had to remain focused as they were there to see Monarch Coquelicot, leader of Tobago's national birds. Monarch Coquelicot was also very gracious, and after giving Tegan a magic hunter's lead pellet, he set her on the last leg of her journey to visit Goat Island. As guests of Monarch Coquelicot, the trio enjoyed a delicious fruit-filled breakfast before setting off on their journey. Jaunts at Englishman's Bay, Parlatouvier Bay, Bloody Bay, Lansformy, Campbellton, Pirates Bay, and Charlottesville followed. From there, it was off to a healthy fish broth lunch in Speyside's Treehouse restaurant, followed by a dip in the aquamarine blue waters off of Blue Waters Inn, where the trio took another glass-bottomed boat on their way to the many islands off the coast. Directly over Speyside's spectacular Angel Reef, King Seven encouraged them to dive down to see the world's largest brain coral. Afraid at first, Tegan soon realized that all her hiking, walking, swimming, and healthy eating had increased her lung capacity, and she was easily able to dive the distance. So enthused was Tegan by her newfound vigor, she decided to swim the rest of the way to the islands. King Seven, being amphibious, was equally comfortable on land as he was in water, so it was no surprise to Tegan how easily he glided through the water. But it was DJ who shocked Tegan. No longer the little weak runt of his birth, Tegan could actually see his muscular development over the days of their arduous journey. Before their final stop at Goat Island, they would detour to Little Tobago, another island off the coast of Speyside. World-renowned for its diverse bird life, King 7 introduced Tegan and DJ to seabirds such as the red-billed tropic bird, Audubon shearwater, brown booby, brown noddy, sooty, red-footed booby, magnificent frigate bird, and bridal terns, as well as a few pair of white-tailed tropic birds that had only recently started nesting there. A short swim for the crew, and evening saw them at their final destination on Goat Island. There, after a long search, they met Papa Goat, the leader of all the goats on the island, and a direct descendant of the first goats shipwrecked on the island hundreds of years before. Papa Goat gave Tegan an old sea-battle plastic soft drink bottle, and with much pomp and ceremony blessed Tegan the jockey and DJ the steed in preparation for Easter Tuesday's goat race. No one blessed by Papa Goat ever lost a goat race. Tegan's eyes lit up with King 7's words as they made their way home later that night. The day had finally come, and as it had been since 1925, many people of Buku opened their homes to welcome visitors and provide delicious cuisine. Favorite dishes like curry crab and coconut dumplings. Proud as a peacock, Tegan strutted down the Buku beach facility with DJ on a rope, King 7 on a string, and her bag of magic items. But as they settled in on a tuft of grass just off the track, King 7 broke his unusual morn's silence. Tegan, there is no greater magic than what lives within us all. Tegan gasped aloud, and her mind immediately flew back to each time she had collected her magic items. She wondered if they were not bestowed onto her, but that she had merely picked them up herself. Tears began to stream down her face as she pulled the feather with the hook, the clear plastic bag, the gun pellets, and the plastic soft drink bottle from her bag. None of this is real, is it? There was deep sadness in Tegan's voice. Not only is it real, it is relevant. Mankind's ways are threatening the balance. Pollution, poaching, and abuse of the world's resources cannot go unchecked. And if we do not draw a line in the sand now, all our futures are bleak. Tegan dried her tears, understanding the message and understanding her task ahead. You sound just like my Gramps. He told me similar things. Images of people discarding plastic bottles at the side of the road popped into Tegan's head, immediately followed by one of children at play in the water letting a plastic bag float away from them. Teenagers with line and bait giggling as they tossed it into a group of birds. And finally, a sinister look on a hunter's face as he fires a big shotgun into the trees. I miss my Gramps. Why did God have to take him away from me? There was deep longing in her words. Don't think about it that way. Think about it as God inviting him to heaven so he can help God look after you. There was deep wisdom in King 7's words, and it brought a smile to Tegan's face as she looked skywards to the heavens. DJ and I are not going to win the race, are we? Tegan, there is no greater magic than what lives within us all. Once you understand this, there is nothing you can't achieve. What do you think all that healthy eating, hiking, swimming, and diving did for you and DJ? It made you too strong. It prepared you for winning the race. Tegan looked at how big and strong DJ had grown, and she lit up. The crowd roared as if they understood Tegan's joy. but it was because the crab race was set to begin. So after tethering DJ to a coconut tree, Tegan led King 7 to the starter's line by his string. In no time the race was over, and although the other crabs were too much for the aged King 7, he and Tegan strutted across the line last, but so proud were their strides that those gathered began to applaud their effort. With a twirl on her heels, Tegan lifted King 7 into her hands and thrust him skyward triumphantly. Her confidence and bravado would be on display soon after when DJ and King 7 exchanged places, with King 7 tethered to a coconut tree and DJ and Tegan the ready at the start line. Off and away, Tegan and DJ easily defeated all the other competitors. The roar of the crowd was even more deafening, with many marveling at how this little girl and her less than average sized goat won the race. Tears of joy streaming down her face, Tegan raced back to King 7, but her joy was ripped from her when he was nowhere to be found. "Your tanty take him to curry." A voice in the crowd explained King 7's disappearance, which Tegan did not doubt, since it was customary for losing crabs to end up in a pot. Like a shot out of a gun, Tegan ran home, and after bursting through the kitchen door, she caught her Aunt Jean just as she was about to put knife to King 7. "No, Tanty, he's special. His name is King 7, king of the good crabs, and he can talk." Tanty Jean just looked at King 7 in her hand and shook him twice with no response. "Daddy used to tell me those same fairy tales when I was your age. Despite what TV teaches you, starfish don't talk, sponges don't talk, and crabs certainly don't talk. Hi!" Even though she was angry, Tegan could see on Jean's face how it hurt her aunt to say those words. Hi was typical Tobigonian, and the expression of exasperation was very familiar to children, as it was often used by adults to end a conversation with them. "You believed in me once." Tegan heard King 7's words, but to her surprise and delight, so did Tanty Jean. Utter shock on Jean's face was soon to escalate, as from behind Tegan at the doorway to the kitchen, another voice was heard. "There is no greater magic than what lives within us all." Tegan turned to see the spirit of her grandfather, dressed in all white, standing at the door. Francis floated to Jean and took King 7 from her hand, but just before he exited the room, he looked back and gave both his girls a wink. Jean and Tegan ran towards each other as mixed tears of joy and sadness ran down their faces. Both had been blessed, and both had been tasked. The years that followed would see Jean take up the challenge to restore the balance of good to bad crabs, and her curry crab became world famous and feverishly sought. In fact, no trip to Tobago by a visitor was complete without a taste of her hand. Tegan, too, took up her challenge by becoming a biologist and the island's most respected naturalist and proponent for the environment. Her lectures would be heard in all the island schools, and for her efforts at protecting the environment, she would be given a national award. Despite this, nature would always be where she was most comfortable, particularly the beach where she met King 7, for she knew that she was not really alone there, as behind every shadow, under every rock, at the side of every tree, she knew that both King 7 and Francis were watching over her. The end. Other titles in this series include a Parang story, a Steel Pan story, a Diwali story, a Moko Jumbi story, and soon to be released a Calypso story. To find out how to have the Caribbean Storytellers Foundation visit your school, club, camp, children's home, etc., please contact us at singpro@gmail.com. Join the Caribbean Storytellers Foundation on Facebook or call us at 1-868-374-8928 or 1-868-390-5694. Interested teachers, parents, guardians, concerned citizens, well-wishers, please join us on Facebook at the Caribbean Storytellers Foundation to share with us or to find out more about this initiative. The Caribbean Storytellers Foundation, changing life stories with live stories.